Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Quota Podcast, your weekly cricketing, South African cricket show. Many things have happened in South Africa for South Africa over the past week, in cricket and rugby. Well done to Springboks on the incredible win last night. The Proteas are looking good, and we're going to be talking about that today. But we are your South African cricket show. Everything you need to know about South African cricket, you will find it here. The keep on calling them Momentum Proteas, but the Proteas women, um, having not played the three T20s in East London because of bad weather and rain. Played their two games over the weekend on Friday and Sunday in Benoni and ended up winning one and losing they lost the first one and won the second one. So well done to them. That comes after obviously them winning the ODI series against New Zealand. So that's something to be happy about. But remember, you can follow us on Full Quarter Pod on X. You can X us. I don't know what a tweet is, but it sounds weird. But follow us on X, subscribe to our One World Sports Radio channel. We'll also have an audio version of this podcast that goes on Spotify. Just search for Quota Podcast right there, as well as Apple Podcasts. Tim's with me today. It's a Monday, always. Tim is always here. So, hi, Tim. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, mate. In a good mood after the rugby, as you said, and looking forward to the weekend when we knock England out of both World Cups.
Yes. And we're going to talk about that because today's show is a Cricket World Cup update show. The Proteas have Netherlands this week, which is tomorrow, and they have England next. We're going to talk about conditions. We're going to talk about the team. We're going to talk about resting players, but these are the next two games. Remember, if you go back to the preview show of this World Cup, we spoke that South Africa will need to make sure that they don't lose more than 3 games. 3 gets you in, but 2 is the number that secures you a semi-final berth, and that win against Australia did that. So let's touch on that first, Tim. That win against Australia, and then we'll move on to these next 2 games because they're also quite important. And with England losing to Afghanistan last night, and having lost to New Zealand, it kind of changes the complexion of who we're going to play in the semifinals and bring some teams in to the equation. So we're going to talk about that. But that game against Australia, South Africa effectively bashing Australia in that game. It was surprising nonetheless. Actually, it wasn't. I thought they'd give up a little bit more fight. And that was my surprise because they beat Australia by 134 runs. We spoke in the preview, Tim, that you needed a good start, a good foundation. Temba and Quinny giving you a 100-run stand. They lost the wicket, but South Africa didn't lose wickets in clumps. They just kept going. Rassie kept going. Quinny then lost his wicket. Aiden joined in. And then somehow we got a little shaky there towards the end. But we ended up getting to about 311 when we should have gotten to about 350. So the question for me was at the innings break, is this enough? It felt enough, but knowing a wounded Australia, having seen a wounded Australia in these spots before at World Cups, I was a little not sure. How did you feel in the middle of that innings break?
I tweeted exactly what you just said. I said, I'm not sure this is enough. I think this is going to be 30 short. And that it would need a quality bowling performance for the Proteas. I still had us slight favourites, but I did think that we were 20 to 30 short at that stage. And I was, like yourself, a little bit concerned. And that was based more on historical occurrences against Australia rather than on current form, because it's not a very good Australian team. Right now, it's fighting back, but it didn't start well in today's game against Sri Lanka. So I was fearful, but that was due to historical losses rather than current what's happening currently with the Australian team.
Yeah, and the batting performance on the other hand was obviously a contrast to Sri Lanka, and I think Sri Lanka was the best one, and you kind of felt that you'd get a bit of a reversion to the mean, so like a poor performance, and that game against Sri Lanka was built on partnerships, right? You started with the Rassi Quinny partnership, and you had Quinny, then you had Rassi Aiden, and then it just kept on going, and the guys in the middle to low order were putting their way. Here was a little bit different. There was some partnerships that it wasn't free flowing, and we expected that with that Lucknow pitch. But Quinton de Kock batted like a man who didn't even know that the pitch was slow. He looked like someone who was playing on a different wicket. Someone who was like playing at the Wanderers rather than Lucknow.
Um, I said on our WhatsApp group, I said that he can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I
Mm,
didn't mean it in a disparaging way. I meant that he can see that he's only got to play a few more games, um, and that retirement is just around the corner. He's looking forward to putting his feet up, relaxing,
mm,
and doing the T20 thing. And that's a good thing. That weight of expectation, that weight of going to training session after training session, that expectation to play for another 3 or 4 years with the Proteas setup,
yeah,
you could see in recent times it was weighing him down.
yeah.
It was getting him down. His performances were not at his level.
Mm,
So that performance with the bat was a realization that for him the decision he has made is the right one, and he is gonna make sure that whatever happens, he is gonna go out on a bang, doing it right at the top of his game, and that's what he's doing.
yes, and to a certain extent, he did that really well. Aiden Markham comes in with another 50 after he scoring the 100. Got some nice performances from Heine Klaassen, um, David Miller, lots of cameos lower down the order. Just wickets just kept on falling towards the end. But yeah, 311 it was. And then our bowlers, our biggest worry, Tim, our biggest worry is our bowlers. We also obviously brought in Bray Shamsi for Joe Kutsia, and started off really well with Lungi and Marco. They're bowling with quite a lot of aggression, and Lungi getting that initial wicket of Mitch of David Warner, which was really important. But Mitch Janssen getting the wicket of Mitch Marsh first, and then it just you looked at that Steve Smith, Manus Labuskaghni, and then Steve then falls um, to Kagiso as second change. How different is it? Because it is different for the South African fan to watch Kagiso not bowl with the new ball and him bowling first change. But that partnership between Janssen and Lungi seems to be getting better. Because I think in Sri Lanka they really did struggle. But now it looks as though they're bowling with a lot more aggression, especially on that pitch. And they open up an end, and then teams think first change, oh, we can have a break, and then we unleash Kagiso Rabada and Keshav Maharaj on them. How much of a I think it's a masterstroke, but what do you think about the whole Kagiso first change?
I think it's an outstanding piece of work. I think that you and I spoke privately before the podcast about
Mm,
the mismanagement of England, and we will get into that when we talk about our fixture against them. They've got a good 11, but they're not getting the best out of that 11 for whatever reason. Um, Whereas us, we're getting the best out of our players. We're putting the players in their best positions, in their best departments, bringing them into the attack when they are at their best, where they are
mm,
more likely to either score runs or get wickets. So it's working. It's working perfectly. It's working perfectly because it's not putting pressure on somebody like Lungi to come back and get wickets. Lungi is, for example, bowling at where he needs to be
mm,
bowling.
yeah.
He's bowling in the power plays. That's what he's good at. Those are our strengths. Yes, he hasn't been great previously, but he's now in that patch.
Yes.
So if the way to go to get the best out of the attack is to have
Mm-hmm.
KG one back, then I'm all for it. I'm all for it. Um, KG can do it both ways, but this team seems determined to play as a team. I
Yes.
think in recent times we've seen, oh, don't worry, Faf will get us out, or AB will get us out, or this one will get
Yeah.
us out. This team is about a togetherness. They're
Yeah.
all chipping in with performances, so it's not just one individual winning us games. It's a team performance.
Yes, and you can see that it was a team performance because there was a little bit of a late fight back from Australia towards the back end of this game. They were, what was it, 6 for 70, and then they had a 69-run partnership between Stoinis and Mitchell Stark, it seems. Yes. Um, no, between Mitchell Stark and Pat Cummins. Um, that didn't necessarily. Oh, Pat Mitchell Stark and Manus Labiskachny, sorry, Labuschagne. And then it looked like, oh, could they come back? I've watched because I was sitting there going, I did commentated on a game the previous Friday night where a team was 99 for 6 and they needed 323 to win, and somehow Patrick Kruger and Bear Swanepoel got a 165-run partnership to help their team over the line, which was unbelievable in itself. And Patrick Kruger getting to 130, and it was yeah, it was that. And I sat there going, no, surely this can't happen again. These two can still do it. Mitchell Stark could do something amazing, and Marnus could. But I look at Marnus, and I'm like, why is this guy playing Test cricket in an ODI age? And so for me, but the difference between the two teams, Tim, and I think I'm going to end it here, is that South Africa are very productive in the middle overs. They are so productive. They rotate the strike really well, whereas Australia have are playing some sort of like a mix between T20 and ODIs, where they're trying to be aggressive at the top and they're trying to continue that aggression over the throughout their innings. And in essence, they find themselves losing wickets when they shouldn't be losing wickets and consolidating. And for me, that's where I see this Australian side, and I think this the ways the South Africans are doing, being pragmatic, giving themselves a platform to build. I think that's the way to go about it. And there's another team in this tournament we're going to talk about who are playing a similar style of cricket to Australia, but they 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 are the ones who are trying to extend the envelope of cricket and see if they can't go at the highest ever economy rate that they can. So yeah, so that's how I saw that game and saw the difference between the teams. And the only other teams in the world that play this brand of cricket are New Zealand right now, and to a certain extent India. But India have the names, New Zealand doesn't. And as you speak of South Africa playing like a team, they're reminding me more of a New Zealand side from the last World Cup that just had guys. They weren't stars; they had guys, and they played for each other.
Yeah, look, I previously I spoke about talking to a member of the South African team.
Mm,
That article has now been published, so it was Eric Simons, and
yes.
I sort of put it to him. I said, South Africa are going to rely on the top six to perform to go far in this World Cup. I sort of put that to him, and he was, determined to come back. He said, if we're going to go far in this World Cup, all 15 players are going to have to perform. All of them are going to
Mm,
have to chip in. Every single member of within that squad is going to have a performance at some
yes.
stage within the tournament. If we do rely on one facet or another, we will end up short. And the performances so far are playing out as he predicted. He said we'll play as a team, and that's exactly what this team is doing, which is which is a huge boost. there's a feel good atmosphere around this team, but
Yes.
there isn't an expectation. I don't think, as in previous World Cups, there's a feel good atmosphere, but there isn't necessarily a you must get there or this team desperately has to get there. There is what I'm trying to get
Don't
at.
worry, Tim.
In
I've got my comments.
India,
Just finish.
what I'm trying to get at is before the World Cup, the strong favourites were India and England by some distance. Everybody was predicting their finalists, and they were all saying India and England final, and they were saying teams like South Africa might make the semi-finals. That would be a decent performance.
Mm.
So that's what I was trying to convey. Not that we have no chance at all, just that the India and England where they play before the World Cup are ahead of us at this stage.
Yeah,
Before
but
England's losses.
look, take England's losses aside, right? The way this team is playing, the way this team has played over the last year, even at the beginning of the year, having taken England down in that ODI series, played really well against Australia, played really well against Netherlands. You can ask yourself, surely it's very hard for a team playing that well to not have expectations, to not dream of bigger moments, to not dream of being the first team in South Africa to make it to a World Cup final and also win it. Do you get what I'm saying? And it's interesting when you say they're playing with no expectation. That I get. But then when you get to a semi-final, how much does it mean to you to get to that final? And we watched it this weekend with the rugby, right? The Fiji England game had a lot of that. It was Fiji making it to the round of six, to the quarterfinals for the first time in their history. They're already heroes in their country. And I do think if the South African cricket team did make it to the semi final with the low expectations that everyone has in the country, they'd get to that semi final thinking, oh, we're here. If we lose in this spot, it's still okay because everyone else has lost here before and nobody ever expected us to be here, which is a type of mentality I'm not necessarily happy with. I want guys to win this World Cup. I think they can win this World Cup. I want them to think they can win this World Cup. I don't because and maybe you know Eric doesn't mean it like that, and I'm maybe stretching a little bit, possibly, but it tells me because a team that's going to win the World Cup sets the goal of winning the World Cup on day one, and they believe they can win the World Cup, and they carry themselves that way.
I just
You know,
that
but
what I
I
was
do
talking about.
get the mental
Yes,
side of it with South Africa having done that at previous World Cups and fallen short. The the backlash of that and the hurt of that is going to always be there. But my answer to that is that it's sport. Someone's going to
yeah,
lose. You know,
yeah.
last night
I,
France
I,
got broken down when they had the expectations, and I'm happy that they did because they came playing like a team wanting to kill a world champion, and they fell, but they shouldn't bemoan themselves and be like, no, we didn't want to have expectations, we just wanted to play rugby. That would have just hurt it even more.
yes,
So but
yeah,
that's just my little
yeah. I,
soapbox
I,
moment. But
I just want to add. I just want to add. That's my opinion. That wasn't Eric's.
mm,
Eric is 100% determined and confident that this team can go all the way. That there's no. I don't want him to get in trouble. That was just my summation. My summation.
yeah,
When I compare it to previous World Cups, that's all.
okay, okay, no, that's fine. That's okay. I'm just trying to take a little bit and be like, because I honestly believe this team can win it. I know a lot of South Africans aren't dreaming. I have already dreamt. I am there. I think they can win. I'm ready for the heartbreak. I'm ready to cry. I'm ready to do that. But I honestly believe in my heart of hearts that this team can do it. And so let's move over to the game for tomorrow, right? In Dharamsala, one of the most beautiful places to play cricket in the world. If you thought Newlands was amazing, turn on the TV tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. and you will see one of the most amazing stadiums, the most amazing places in the world. The backdrop of the Himalayas behind you, and it is just spectacular. They're playing at altitude. It's beautiful, beautiful stadium. It used to be the Pune, no, not Pune, the Punjab home ground, which was, used to be David Miller's home for a while, many years ago. But it's going to be quite interesting because this is a Sippy banana peel for South Africa. And they come out of a World Cup last year in Adelaide where they were unprepared, flat out unprepared, and they got humiliated by the Netherlands. They have beaten the Netherlands in 50 over competition before in this year and effectively relegated the Netherlands to the the qualifiers, which they are playing well. You have a team that, from a talent perspective, isn't up there with the Proteas at a 50 over level. At a 20 over level, anything can happen. My question to you, Tim, is can the same embarrassment that happened at Adelaide happen again tomorrow in Dharamsala?
It can. If we just go by the Afghan performance against England, it definitely can.
Mm-hmm.
But it would be, for me, a bigger shock than the Afghans beating England. Um, I think the conditions suited Afghanistan massively. So that was a shock, but I think this one would be an even bigger shock.
Yeah.
Also the fact that it's a longer game, so if South Africa are in trouble, there is enough space for them to go and calm heads. There's a lot of experience within that team to go, right, we're in a tough spot. Let's
Mm-hmm.
just revert back to type. Let's just conserve our energies, or if they're batting and they're struggling, let's just rotate the strike and just see where we are in 5-10 overs. So there is a lot of space for South Africa to recover if they are in a tricky situation. Um, I don't think they're going to mess up here. I don't think they're going to go unbeaten in the round robin either. But
Mm-hmm.
I'd be very surprised. Also on the performances of the Netherlands that I've seen so far, they do seem to rely on 2 or 3 players. They've got a good squad, but they do seem to rely on 2 or 3, and if those 2 or 3 guys do not come off, they do tend to struggle.
Yeah, and I think that's what I've seen with the Netherlands, having watched them play their earlier games, is there is a gulf in class. They do deserve to be here. That's for sure. At this level, they do deserve to be here. They're at the bottom of this level, and as all our Netherlands reporters have always mentioned over the years, a little bit more investment in their cricket, they can become very competitive, and they've done well so far. Ruler van der Merwe comes back to face the Proteas again. In and Seybrand Engelbrecht, who is the new Dutch player, the new sensation that they have there. He played for Western Province for all those years. He now plays for the Netherlands. Um, I'm not worried. I'm just making sure that I just don't want drama, losing wickets in the clumps, because that brings teams together, and with the rain all around, it might make it a rain a reduced game, right? Which then brings the Netherlands into that game. It's still favoring South Africa, but we have to be very pragmatic tomorrow. It doesn't matter. You don't have to blow them away in the first 10 overs. You can just do like you did with Australia, build on that foundation, take yourself to 25 overs. Then after that, you can accelerate and put them away. Um, it's going to take a lot of that than necessarily climbing on top of everybody and on top of them for a very long time. Um, how do you think the Proteas should go about this sim tomorrow?
Well, it's gonna be very interesting to see what the Netherlands do, because they've won both of their tosses in their games, and they've
Mm-hmm.
said that they would chase. Now it hasn't worked um, at all. In fact, it's backfired quite badly in both instances. Um, but I think if that happens again, I think South Africa will be happy. I think
Mm.
if they can bat first, put pressure on, if they get to sort of 300, they can then almost pretty much. I don't want them to, but they can sort of go, well, it's one. It's we can
Yeah.
release the pressure a little bit. I want them to blow them away, but my point would be they don't need to play brilliantly for 100 overs if that is the case. If they bat first and score those runs, but it would be similar to what we saw in the rugby.
Yeah.
Go at them hard initially. That's what I would like to see. Go at them hard initially,
Okay.
whether it's batting or bowling. Put the pressure on. Tell the Netherlands that there is no chance of a slip up here. There is no chance of a repeat what we saw 11 months ago. There is no chance of a revenge. Make sure that is 100% nailed in, and then at the back end at the second half of the innings, you can then just relax a little bit and make sure that your run rate is good, because we want a good run rate from this game.
Yeah.
We don't want that to come down, because run rates are going to be important.
Yes.
With all these results we've seen so far, run rates are
And
going to be important.
and we're currently in a good net run rate situation, and so yeah. So I think on my end, not necessarily blowing away from moment one, but do get to 320. You have to get to 320, and then you have to. And the thing for me in this game is more about our bowlers, right? Our bowlers' ability to be able to put pressure on them very early, take early wickets, and essentially employ certain plans that you might be employing against England, which um is weird because you're playing the Netherlands and you need to focus on the Netherlands, but use this as some sort of a warm up for what's going to happen on Saturday, right? Saturday is the must win game. And I'm not saying you mustn't not necessarily take this lightly, but if you can put pressure on the top order of the Netherlands, you will make this the bowling overs of the 50 bowling overs of the 100 will be a lot easier to manage and a lot easier to work through, like you did against Australia. You put them under pressure, you took early wickets, and they were in trouble, and you controlled the game, and then you had this high net run rate at the end of the day. That's how I think it should be. And that leads me to the team selection. A lot of people are saying rest guys, it's gonna be a long tournament, rest guys. Give other guys a chance on the bench. Lazard, Andile, Riza should get a bat, and the like. My answer is it's not a high school team. They have enough rest, and play your best 11, and play the 11 that played against Australia, and possibly even play the 11 that will play against England. So you give them a run. So whatever you're thinking of playing on Saturday, that 11 plays here. So my answer to the question I'm going to ask you, what changes are you going to make to this team? My answer is I'm making no changes. Going with the same 11. I love this 11. Everyone knows I love two spinners. I thought Shamsi didn't bowl well, but managed to get wickets at the end. And he needs that confidence, and I think he'll be very important against England.
I tend to agree. I would like to give a game to Riza, and I would like to give a game to Lazard. Of course I would. The sentimental part of me would absolutely love to give that. This isn't to be disparaging to the Netherlands, but it's almost unfortunate that we're not playing the Netherlands as our 8th or 9th game of the tournament, having already qualified. If that were the case, then I might be more inclined to go along that line. I might say, well, we are definitely, so for example, we are definitely going to qualify in the first two. So now I will drop KG and bring Lazard in. I might be more inclined to do that, having already qualified and knowing where all the other teams are. Because there's been so much movement, because there's been so many, well, not so many, because there's been two surprises already in the tournament. I
What was
don't
your first
want to make
surprise?
changes. Not the fact that New Zealand beat England, but the manner
Yes.
of the
Okay.
slaughter of England was just
Yeah.
extraordinary.
Prior to the
Um,
tournament, you'd have thought that's an easy England win because
yeah,
of the way in which both teams were at in terms of ODI cricket, and
yeah,
then but New Zealand finding a way to come to a World Cup buttoned up and ready, like
yeah,
always.
yeah, yeah. So no,
Okay,
I wouldn't make any changes, despite
sure.
sentimentally liking the idea. I wouldn't be doing it. Not now.
Conditions tomorrow. Obviously, there'll be a little bit of rain. Obviously, we're both saying we're not making any changes. Um, but from a toss perspective, if there's rain about, what's your preference?
I think that. I think that. I haven't heard a lot about this particular
Mm-hmm.
wicket. I heard a lot about Lucknow, and it didn't play exactly how I thought or heard it might play. That
Mm.
there was some sort of um, there wasn't a unison agreement as to how it would play. There was various thoughts, but I think I would still bat, put the runs on the board, make sure that top six is maintaining that
Mm-hmm.
consistency, maintaining the fact that they are all firing at all
Yes.
cylinders. That's what I would do, I think.
Are you not worried that we're not good chasers, or we
I'm
haven't
not.
chased?
I know a team like India is obsessed with chasing. I know that. I get that. No. If we're winning games, we're winning games. That's not a concern for me. Particularly if the batting is going as well as it is. The
Mm.
fact that it's doing it first up to me says to me that it doesn't say to me, "Ooh, I'm not sure how they're going to be chasing." It, the way they're going about it at the moment, I don't see that. I think India is going to be very difficult. I
Mm-hmm.
think that it's going to be a very difficult game, and it's going to be very interesting to see who does what when we get there. But no, it's not a massive concern for me at the moment. Um, my concerns different to that. My concerns are a lack of killer instinct, which I've seen a little bit of, which
Yes.
has been creeping in. But that's the
But
only
isn't that
sort
like
of
a cricket
black
thing, Tim?
mark.
Where it's more of a, you know, you once you've broken the back of a team's chase, or you've thought you've done, there's a little bit more complacency that creeps in, and maybe that's something that Rob needs to look at going forward. But there's a golfing class here. There shouldn't be any drama tomorrow. If there is, if South Africa loses to the Netherlands, it's not the end of the world, but we'll look back at that game if they don't make it to the semifinals. It's that
Yeah,
simple. If everyone's
yeah,
beating the Netherlands, you need to beat the Netherlands too, which is why the whole Afghanistan thing for England makes it a little bit prickly pear, because if everyone's going to be beating Afghanistan, you need to beat them too. And yeah, that's what makes the qualification really hard. Talking about that in golf and class, I know England aren't playing well, but the gulf and class between us and them is minuscule. And to certain on certain days, if England can find their form, they are a better side than South Africa. We beat them 2-1 in the ODI series earlier this year. They had their guys. It was still a very competitive series, and we did really well. Timber really came through. Aiden came through. Guys really stepped up. In Rob Walters' first series, and now he was in New Zealand, but Shukri Conrad took over, and it was lovely. It was amazing. England coming into this tournament have now are not playing their great cricket, and we know that it's a marathon, and there'll be ups and downs. And you could say that maybe losing to Afghanistan, losing to New Zealand, you know that they've taken a skid, right? But Saturday presents a very unique opportunity, Tim, and you mentioned it earlier on the show, is that we could effectively eliminate them out of the tournament by them having three losses. And what we mean by that, and what you mean by that is the line for any contention for the semifinals is three losses. Apologies. Yes, just picking up many things today. Um, and that line is three losses. It might be four, But if you lose to South Africa on Saturday, it makes the World Cup even harder because it becomes must-win territory going down, and they still have to play India, still have to go through Pakistan, they still have to also go through Australia, which then makes life a lot harder for England, right? And it presents a nice spot for them because they're wounded, they've been humiliated, they have a whole week to prepare for South Africa, and the pitch in Mumbai should be a great pitch. So how does South Africa prepare for a team like this, where you know that the standard is very high, but they're playing here? What do you do in preparation for a game like England if you're Rob Walter and Temba Bavuma?
You've got to maintain the levels that we've seen so far.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm looking at the England side, you switch things around a little bit if you're South Africa. Instead of saying we need the top 6 to fire, and look, we will need the top 6 to fire. But what I see and I saw with the Afghan game is if South Africa put pressure with the ball against that top 6, the England top 6, yes, they can bat down to 9, 10. They got Mark Wood at 10. But it's not a I don't know what's the word. It's not a frightening top 6 to me. It doesn't
Okay.
it doesn't scream fear in my eyes. There are lots of areas of concern. They've got Brook, who's not firing. We know he's a fantastic player.
But didn't he score 66 yesterday in a losing cause and he got run out?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. But I think overall, he was picked largely to a large extent on the ceiling he's going to reach, not what he has reached, what he's going to reach. So 2027, he is going to be phenomenal, in my opinion. He is going to break all sorts of records.
And we'll be watching him live in South Africa.
Yeah. So I would have picked him in my 15, probably, for a range of reasons, but it's a difficult one because England, it's difficult to give you factual things that are going wrong, except for the fact that for whatever reason, that top 6 is not clicking, and it's the Harry Brooks situation, it's the Ben Stokes situation. I didn't understand that. Ben Stokes coming back when, in my opinion, they didn't need it. Ben Stokes in one-day cricket does not have, at the moment, the same influence that Kane Williamson does for New Zealand. The Kane Williamson selection, that I understand, and it makes sense. The Ben Stokes one doesn't make sense. But to go back to your original point, I would be nailing that bowling. I would be absolutely nailing that bowling performance for the South Africans. I would be doing loads of change-ups, wide Yorkers, lots of variety. What this England top 6 do not like is lots of variety. If you are all doing Gerald Coetzee 140 plus, that top 6, it's going to come off at some stage.
Yes.
It's going to come off at one stage. It is going to. They're not always going to just flounder like they're doing at the moment. You need to have variety. And that's not just having 2 spinners. That is doing change-ups, doing different types of slow balls. It's doing slow ball bounces. It's doing wide Yorkers. And that's something I don't see enough of in a general context from South Africa. They believe in their structures. They believe in what they're doing, which is fine. My concern when they play against teams like England and Australia is it need a little bit more. That would be my concern. You need a little bit more than just sticking to your plan A's.
It's actually quite interesting because we don't do that. We don't do ball Yorkers. We slow balls we do, and those are the change ups, but that's where we leave it. I know Lungi's got a lot more in his bag, and I think he might be important in this game from a skill perspective. The other person who's got a lot more skill is Andile Petluguayo, but there's no spot in his team currently for him unless if you want to do Shamsi out, Petluguayo in, and go with it. And I do think maybe the conditions might work in that favor. Um, but it's going to be quite interesting to see how this how Rob selects that team. It's actually quite interesting because now it looks as though we're the favorites and they're the underdogs. When we looked at this game, we thought actually this is a game we could lose and we'd be comfortable losing. But now the mentality has changed, similar to Australia, right? Now it's a situation of actually we can win this game and we should go out and actually try and win it and get 4 wins in a row on the bounce, assuming we beat the Netherlands. And that sets you up really nicely, right? You're 2 wins away from getting yourself in the door of the semi-finals, 3 wins away from that, and you've got Bangladesh following in the next Tuesday. That's always a tough game in a World Cup context. They've always had our number 2019 and 2007, and so this game's actually quite important. And so, from a South African perspective against England, batting wise, is there somebody or is there something that they need to be worried about from an England bowling perspective? Because I know they've got all these all rounders and all these different players, right? And so the question for me is, do they need to be truly worried about this England side? As I lose light, I don't know why I'm losing light,
Uh,
but anyway,
no, that's okay. We can hear you. There you go. You're
back.
back. So you're talking about England bowling.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad you asked because when I look at this team, I perhaps didn't articulate the batting struggles from their perspective quite enough. But the bowling for me is their biggest concern. So the batting isn't firing, but
Mm-hmm.
when I look at that bowling, I don't actually understand, on paper at least, why everybody's saying they are going to be in the final. It's India-England final, 100%, nailed on. Um, it's not what I would call a quality bowling lineup.
Mm-hmm.
There are, I would say, 3 or 4 bowling units in the World Cup that are much, much stronger than that England setup at the moment. Um, but at the same time, we allow we allowed Glenn Maxwell free reign when we played him, which made no sense at all. So maybe Liam Livingston will bowl 10 overs for 30 when we play him. But it's to me it's not a quality. Let me put it this way: their bowling unit 2019 was stronger, and stronger by some distance than what it is at the moment. Um, I get the whole Liam Livingston, and as you say, the currents, they'll be useful in those conditions. But I actually think on those flatter wickets in India, I think they are going to go for plenty on a more consistent basis. Those balls are
Yeah.
just going to sit up. Those change ups that they have, because Cowan isn't quick enough, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He's quick enough for England conditions. That's not a problem. But on those flatter Indian pitches, somebody like him is likely to go for plenty. They rely a lot on Topley. Um,
Yes.
Again, I'm not a massive fan, but one thing Topley does have is he has that height, and with that
Yes.
height, he gets the bounce. So if he remains injury free throughout the tournament and he consistently plays and gets
Mm-hmm.
wickets, he can get them into problems, get them in good positions. But there's not enough to back that up, in my opinion. And that's a huge problem for them. So their top 6 has to fire pretty much all the time, and if it doesn't, like it has shown in the opening 2 games, they are going to struggle for me.
And And that's the contrast in the two teams, right? England have gone for bowlers who can bat and bat pretty well, which allows them to be aggressive with the bat and to be able to put up the high scores that they feel. Whereas South Africa, on the other hand, goes for a top six or a seven that have to do the job, right? And so it gives you that contrast of South Africa always starts slowly, slower than England would than you would see with England, but then we back up bowlers to give you back, because the issue with England is that bowlers five, six, and maybe even seven, if they have number seven there, could all go for 100 runs. And bowler number four, who should be an out and out bowler, could also go for 9, 10, and over. And that's the difference between the South African side, whereas South Africa have five bowlers who, on their worst day, it's 9 and over. It's never more than that. Whereas England, there's the opportunity for you to tear into the Glenn Maxwell's of the world, which is also the very surprising thing that South Africa didn't want to do that. But yeah, many things were happening in Lucknow. Everyone was worried about the pitch. Everyone was worried about the new pitch. Whereas I think at the Wankede, it'll be a little bit easier because there's a lot of history. There's a lot of knowledge around that. And I think even if South Africa does chase, it'll be a lot more comfortable. And as you rightly say, I think we can tear into that top order because they are not playing well and inflict a lot of pain on them. Um, do you have a preference of toss with England? Because I know with Netherlands you wanted to bat first. Are you still saying let's bat first? Let's put them under scoreboard pressure.
Because of where we're playing, and it's likely to be a run fest. By all accounts. I'm gonna go with the batting again. Yeah, I'm gonna go. You know what? Particularly with the fact that England are under pressure, so they will need to perform. And I've obviously said they rely so much on Topley and Rashid. Topley and Rashid do not perform, they are in trouble. They're in trouble with their bowlers. So yeah, let's hit them with their weakness. Hit their weakness. Get to 350, and shut up shop and say that's it. Your World Cup has come to an end.
Yeah, well, not come to an end, but it's at the door.
Effectively, yeah. No,
and India's going to take you home.
Yeah,
yeah, because you won't make it into the World Cup having lost 4 games. The semi-finals would be a travesty. So, yeah, we've got a lot of cricket happening this week, everybody, and so we've just done a preview of both the games, England and Netherlands and England. Do enjoy the games tomorrow. That's the most important thing about being a fan, enjoying the cricket. I know that after England's cricket match, there's that rugby semi-final, which is a repeat of the 2019 Rugby World Cup final. So enjoy that too. But yeah, we've given you as much as we know and much as we can that you can take for this game against England. They are wounded, and we can put them away. And it's interesting because a couple of weeks ago, we were worried about this game. Now, there's a little less worry. It's more of a situation of if we play our normal game that we've played already, we give ourselves a massive chance of winning it. And England have to play out of their socks to beat us, which is always a nice place to be. Outside of that, thank you very much. Remember, please follow us on X at Quota Pod. Subscribe to the One World Sports Radio channel, and also follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts if you're that way inclined for audio. Outside of that, thank you very much, Tim. And we'll see you next week with another episode, or later in the week with another episode. Who knows? The world of cricket changes so much, and we are always versatile. Outside of that, goodbye and Nesale Kakahiso.